Sige, Well, here, the mic on him. The mic's here.
I'm just going to read. Just from وجوه يومئذ نادرة.
Start from the beginning. No, start from the beginning. Start from the beginning.
Yeah.
And then go to...
These boys are too shy. Yeah. He's my young.
Only start from
You were young. Three boys.
Bismillah. Check the YouTube.
Stop. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا أقسم بيوم القيامة ولا أقسم بالنفس اللوامة أيحسب الإنسان أن لن نجمع عظامه بلى قادرين على أن نسوي بنانه بل يريد الإنسان ليفجر أمامه يسأل أيان يوم القيامة فإذا برق البصر وخسف القمر وجمع الشمس والقمر يقول الإنسان يومئذ أين المفر كلا لا وزر إلى ربك يومئذ المستقر ينبأ الإنسان يومئذ بما قدم وأخر بل الإنسان على نفسه بصيرة ولو ألقى معاذيره صدق الله العظيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, this event, alhamdulillah, jazakumullah khair to the brothers at the IQ Center for putting it together, is one that for me is a unique opportunity. It's the first time I'm speaking about my return from Syria after having last visited about 12 years ago. Some of you may have known that I was in Afghanistan a couple of years ago, and had returned to the Bagram prison and to the after the Fath, after the place had been taken over again and the United States had withdrawn and left in defeat. As a result of me being in Afghanistan, as you know, I was imprisoned in Bagram. Several years later, I was imprisoned again, this time because of Syria and my connection to Syria. The accusations against me were that I was helping the Syrian rebels, which I never denied. I was and did help the Syrian rebels to protect themselves from chemical weapons and from barrel bombs and from one of the biggest slaughters of civilians we've seen in modern times. So having returned there after this time, again, was as if Allah Azza wa Jal has allowed me to partake in a second victory within 2 years. But this is different to Afghanistan. When I went to Afghanistan, I was kind of in tears because of the memories that were very, very painful. When I went back here, there were also painful memories, but this time I was laughing. And one of the reasons is the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا فَسَدَ أَهْلَ الشَّامَ فَلَا خَيْرَ فِيكُمْ. If the people of Sham become corrupted, then there is no good in you, meaning you, the Sahaba. And then he mentioned, the hadith continues, وَلَا تَزَالَ طَائِفَةٌ مِّنْ أُمَّتِي مَنْصُورِينَ لَا يَضُرُّهُمْ مَنْ خَذَلَهُمْ حَتَّى تَقُومُ السَّاعَةِ. That there will always be a group of my ummah that are victorious, and they will never be harmed by those who are treacherous towards them until the coming of the final hour. So Sham is a blessed land. Of course, as you know, Sham isn't only Syria. Indeed, today, if you go to the people of Syria, when they say Sham, they mean Damascus. But Sham actually means the whole region, including Palestine, Lebanon, Jordan, Sham, and even part of Turkey. So let me begin by just telling you that one of the biggest arguments today about Syria and the Assad regime was that it was protecting the Palestinians. It was supporting Hezbollah, and it was helping to keep the Palestinians some kind of support. So I don't know how many of you have heard of the Yarmouk refugee camp. Now Yarmouk is named after the region where the famous battle took place of Khalid ibn Walid against 150,000 odd Romans and 30,000 Muslims. This isn't the exact same place, but it is named after Yarmouk. And Khalid ibn Walid's story is relevant to this, as you will see inshallah in a few moments. But the Yarmouk refugee camp, can you see here the flags? Very clearly, you have a Syrian flag of the new regime, the new Syrian government, and the Palestinian flag next to one another. And it says Mukhayyam Yarmouk, which means the camps. This region here was the Palestinians who came out, especially in 48, but also some in 1967, when their homes had been taken in places like Safed and Jaffa and Haifa and beyond, which is now being absorbed as part of Israel. So if you go into the Yarmouk camp, you'll ask people, where are you from? And they'll tell you, we ask them, where are you from? And they say, we're from those parts, Safed and Haifa and Jaffa and beyond. The other thing that you'll see about Yarmouk is that it's destroyed. And Yarmouk isn't in Gaza. Yarmouk is in Syria, the place that was supposed to be the bastion of defending the axis of resistance, Assad. The picture that's on the left is actually the house of a woman that I went with some brothers, that we went and saw her and we tried to help her a little bit. She lives there with 3 children. That's where she lives now, in the middle of all this destruction. You think because of the destruction nobody lives there, but you'd be totally wrong. I had thought that perhaps maybe I would kind of play a bit of a trick and then send it on social media. I was going to take these pictures and then say, brothers and sisters, guess where I am? I'm in Gaza. I'm in Gaza. And people would have believed me, because the destruction is no different. And here you can see this is called Jami' Palestine. Everything in Yarmouk is connected to Palestine, by the way. This is called Jami' Palestine. It's a huge and beautiful masjid, but was laid waste by the Assad regime, destroyed and left nothing but a skeleton of itself. I went and met with many Palestinians who were part of the Palestinian resistance in Gaza, or connected to it. And they explained how it's a complete fallacy that the Assad regime was protecting them. In fact, it was butchering them. This is just part of the driving. There are entire regions of Syria that are like this. Around Aleppo, around Homs, which you'll see, around Ghouta, and around Yarmouk, all around Damascus. There are entire regions that are laid to waste. And as I said, that in the midst of this, you'll find people living, often orphans with random people or widows, where there is no running water, where there is no electricity, where food is hard to get, and yet there is life there. I had wanted to show you some videos of where I'd gone, but if you go into my social media, inshallah, you'll be able to see them, the videos of actually me walking inside these prisons. Now, Palestine branch is a translation of Farah Palestine. And Farah Palestine was one of the many torture centers run by the Assad regime's mukhabarat. And you have to ask yourself, why in Syria, which is supposed to be this great defender of the Palestinians, why is it that this place is called Palestine branch? Why is this place of all places, why is it named Palestine branch? And the answer is that this torture center that could hold up to 3,000 political prisoners was called Palestine branch because the majority of the prisoners held here were originally Palestinian. Now, so you have an understanding of what does this mean. The Islamic Jama'at, the Islamic groups of the Palestinian resistance, they were primarily the victims of Assad and in his torture camps. As for the leftist, communist, socialist type of groups, he's happy with those guys. So that's where the kind of the disparity comes. Yeah, he did support some Palestinians, but not the Muslim Islamic ones. I did, as I say, have a video of Palestine branch, and if you, part of the nature of these prisons is that they have special cells underneath the ground. And that's where they have the solitary confinement cells. And as I said, if you go online and you look on my social media, you'll find the videos of going in with this brother. You can see this brother on the right-hand side. He has an interesting story. His name is Abu Bara. He was himself a prison guard in Farah, Palestine. But he was a prison guard, as they say, on the inside, working for one of the Islamic groups. And he was trying to help the prisoners themselves and helping to get them information in, getting news out, and then he was caught. So then when he was caught, he was thrown himself into the cell. And again, I say the cell that I looked at that he was in, it measures around 1 meter by 2 meters. It was smaller than my Guantanamo cell. And yet he was in there for a couple of years. And there were people in there for many years. And one of the things of Palestine branch was that when we as Cage had worked on certain cases, we'd come across a women's section. We knew that they held women in there. There was a sister called Maryam from London, who herself had been detained at a time in Palestine branch in Syria, and she herself had been in one of these cells. And there were others that we were looking at in terms of how they had been targeted. And so Palestine branch was a place that was used by the Assad regime to terrify and to frighten people in Syria. But as I said, it wasn't the only one. There were many others. There's Farah 215, that's even worse, where they had long-term prisoners, and I didn't get access to this one. And even worse than that is a prison called Tadmor, which I'll tell you about in a moment, inshallah, once we go through this. You may have seen Sednaya in the media. This was a prison, again, that had thousands, up to they say up to 100,000 prisoners passed through here, and many were killed. One of the things that the brother told me in Palestine branch was that I asked him, were there deaths here? He said there were bodies carried out every single day for years. I got to Sednaya long after it had been taken over by the rebels, but the brothers with me had reached, and they found multitudes of corpses in the morgues and in the cells. Walking in these places is like walking into a horror film. Only it's just the props that's left there. The horror story has already happened. And there are single cells here also, again underneath the ground. And they were even smaller than the ones I saw in Farah, Palestine. They were about 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters. Again, I'm sorry, it's not in these pictures because I took video after video, and it was just a bit awkward to upload the videos here. But if you go onto my social media, you will see the videos. These entrances, you can see the doors here, the entrances to cells which are zanazin al-jama'i, which is like communal cells. They have the cell, if you look at the size, it's about the size from the back there to where I'm sitting, about 200 to 300 prisoners packed like sardines with one another, and one toilet between them. One toilet between 200 to 300 prisoners. There is no space to sleep. People have to stand and take turns in sleeping. Sednaya prison is a huge, huge prison. And as I said, there's still remnants of things that remain. A jacket of one of the prison guards, a picture. There was thousands, in the first days when Sednaya was freed, thousands and thousands of people descended on this place, searching desperately for their relatives. And there's still many, many that are disappeared. They don't know. There are graves there of tens of thousands of people, unmarked, mass graves. And this is just one person out of the thousands of people that were there. So getting away from the prisons a little bit, just when you drive around through different parts of Syria, alhamdulillah, I went all the way from in the north, a city called Azaz, right down to Damascus. And in between, you have the cities of Idlib and Aleppo and Hama and Hims and eventually Damascus. So you see an image of somebody called Hamza al-Khatib all over the place. And Hamza al-Khatib, if you don't know who he is, he became a symbol for the revolution. And Hamza, in 2011, when the protests first began, he was detained by the Assad regime police and was brutally tortured to death. He's only 13 years old. When they found his body, when his body was handed over, rather, it was shown signs of traces of cigarette burns, torture, mutilation, and his emasculation. I don't have to describe what emasculation means. For those of you who know, you'll understand what that means. As well as bullet holes, and he became one of the major reasons why Dara, of all the cities which is down the south, was the spark that began the revolution. Remember, it began in 2011-12, and it just ended in December. The city of Homs, remember I said to you that Khalid ibn Walid was the leader at the Battle of Yarmouk. Homs is the city where Khalid ibn Walid is buried. And this destruction you can see, so you have an idea, the destroyed buildings are everywhere, but life goes on. People are still living. And in the background, if you see Homs, right behind it is a masjid. You can make out the masjid? That is the masjid next to the grave of Khalid ibn Walid, which itself was destroyed and was being rebuilt as I was there. That's the masjid. And you can see right next to it and around it, just as there are Syrian flags, there's also every now and then you'll see a flag of the Shahada. And this is the burial place of Khalid ibn Walid. If you see on the right, it says his name there, right in front of that gate. Radiyallahu anhu. And then, as you're going towards Damascus, you pass through the city of Hama. Now, I don't know how many of you have heard of Hama before. Perhaps nobody has. But Hama is famous, or rather infamous, because in 1982, there was a massacre that took place in the city of Hama. And the massacre was of 40,000 people, including tens of thousands who were placed in a prison called Tadmur. Remember I said to you I was going to mention a prison called Tadmur. Thousands of prisoners were sent to a place called Tadmur. And in the prison cells in Tadmur, I've seen the pictures of them. Tadmur was destroyed by ISIS apparently. But Tadmur had prison cells that you cannot sit down in that cell. It's like a standing coffin. So the measurement is about 1/2 meter by 1/2 meter. You can't sit down, let alone lie down. You have to stand in that cell. And that's, again, I'm going to make reference to Tadmur in a moment because I want to tell you a little story about that. So Hama was the place where these tens of thousands of people were killed in 1982 by the father of Bashar al-Assad, Hafiz al-Assad, who already had begun the process of targeting, imprisoning and killing Muslims, especially those who identified clearly with their faith. This is a masjid of Nuruddin al-Zingi. For those who know their history or are interested in history, this was a masjid that was built by him. He's the predecessor of Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, and this is one of the masajid that was built in a beautiful way by him and is still standing. Interestingly, you know, life is about recycling. We talk about how we recycle now, but everything's recycled throughout history. And here you can see they've used bricks or stones that are written in ancient Greek. The language is ancient Greek from the time of the Byzantines. So things are used and reused, and this is an evidence of one of them. These you can probably make out the one on the left. On the right, perhaps not so much because it's taken from a different angle. But these are water wheels that have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. I don't know the exact date, but as you can see, there's a lot of pollution there. You wouldn't want to get any water out of that. Now, I'm getting to a bit of a personal story here now. These two brothers, they're actual brothers. They're from a family in a village in Idlib, near Idlib area, who I lived with for many months, when I was there in 2012. Malik, who's on the left, and Khattab, who's on the right. Malik is a medic and Khattab is an engineer. 3 of their brothers were killed in the revolution. 3 of them. But to look at them, you would never imagine. You'd never think, oh, these guys, look, they've gone through so much. Malik used to treat wounded after wounded in the hospitals, often covered in blood, for years on end. But look at the smile. Look at Malik's one of my closest friends in Syria. And the love and the hospitality of these people is hard to replicate. You can't replicate it. You can't replicate it at all. Especially after everything they've seen and gone through. They still smile. And he's like that. That smile, that's not fake. He's not smiling for the camera. He's always smiling. I went back to school again for a little bit. But they wouldn't accept me in the class. Part of what they're doing is they're running schools. After being involved in the fight and the jihad and helping to repair people's broken bodies, they are now helping to educate their children. I said to you about Tadmur, right? So this is a graveyard in the village where Malik lives. And it's a very, very special graveyard because there's a brother from Birmingham buried there. Those who know may know. Those who don't, I'll tell you later. To the left, Malik is sitting at the grave of a man called Abu Ahmed. And some of you may recall I told you the story of Abu Ahmed before, but if you don't, let me tell you again. Abu Ahmed, in the 1982 Hama uprising, was imprisoned in the Tadmor prison. You know, the one I told you with the single cells? But it also had communal cells where hundreds were placed in, 300, 400 in a cell. This is the grave of Abu Ahmed. Abu Ahmed was a teacher of the Quran. And each person in that cell when he was around at 1982, when he was a young man, was assigned a number. There are that many people, they couldn't know who's who. And they would call certain numbers out, and those numbers would be taken for execution. Daily, 20, 30, 40 being executed. Abu Ahmed one day fell asleep, and his number was called. And one of his students, because he was a Quran teacher, one of his students loved him so much, he took his place and was executed as a result. Abu Ahmed survived, but not until somebody had poked his eye out. And when I met him in 2012, he told me the story himself. And he just died a few years ago. On the right is the grave of one of the greatest Syrian leaders I've ever met. His name was Abu Abdullah Hamawi, Abu Abdullah Hamawi Hassan Aboud. And he was killed in around 2014 by a suspected suicide bomb attack. He was the leader of Ahrar al-Sham, and the kind of person that I really believe the Ummah would have greatly benefited from, especially at this point now. May Allah have mercy on them all. Some of you may recall that I've told you the story, maybe you forget or not, I don't know. There's a brother here, you can see it says Abu Qudama, and then underneath Shaheed. Abu Qudama is from the UK. And his story is this. In 2012-13, when I was there, I was in a house with Abu Qudama and a few other brothers. And it was late at night. And Abu Qudama, I noticed when I woke up around 2 o'clock in the morning, he's on the floor in sajda. I noticed again the same day, the next day, the very same thing. Abu Qudama, I wake up around 2, 3 o'clock, well before Fajr, and he's in sajda. Abu Qudama is the kind of guy that when you see him, he's a joker. He laughs and he makes you laugh. He's a khadim, he's always serving people, always loves people, always happy. And Abu Qudama also, I noticed that he doesn't eat very much. Often days you see him, the guy's not eating anything with the other guys, except at Maghrib. Abu Qudama, and I asked the other brothers about him who knew him far better than I did. They said, yeah, he does the fast of Dawood alayhi salam. Do you know what the fast of Dawood alayhi salam is? 1 day on, 1 day off. Meaning that you are fasting 6 months of the year. This was Abu Qudama. So how does Abu Qudama end up there? So there's a place where near the front line, there's a sniper alley. And a sniper alley means that that's a place that if you walk through that place, they normally put up big sheets so that they can't see who's walking around there. But at this moment, at this place, a brother had walked past and he'd been shot by a sniper. And he'd been shot to be wounded, not to be killed. Because the sniper wants to maximize the damage he can do. He wants to get the rescuer too. So here's the story related to me by a brother who was there when this happened. Abu Qudama is a fighter. And he comes forward, he sees that there's a wounded brother, nobody's going to rescue him. So Abu Qudama, what does he do? He goes into sajda. He remains in sajda for what seems like an eternity. Then he cocks his gun, takes it off safety, crawls forward, starts shooting to give cover fire, grabs the brother, drags him. As he's firing, the gun, the magazine finishes. He tries to get ready to reload. He's got the brother out of harm's way, right in his head. And I was amongst several brothers who buried Abu Qudama with our own hands back in 2012. Behind him is another brother, also from the UK, and behind him is a brother called Dr. Isa Abdurrahman, who is a doctor from the UK who was also killed by the regime. Meaning to say that here in this place, though you may not have a sense of any connection to Syria, Syria is connected to the whole of the Muslim world. And that's why I said it's important to remember the hadith, إِذَا فَسَدَ أَهْلَ الشَّامَ فَلَا خَيْرَ فِيكُمْ. As long as there's good people in Sham, there's going to be good in us. This is, it doesn't look like much of a house, but this used to be my house. I used to live there. I built it. And this used to be our view. That was our view. It's changed a lot now, and there's lots of things more built now. But that used to be my view when I used to wake up in the morning. This is a brother whose father is very well known. Inshallah, a podcast I've done with him will be coming out soon. He also was a fighter. He makes no bones about that. But you'll find, inshallah, in the next week or so, a detailed podcast in which I'm interviewing him will come out. And it's fascinating, telling, revealing, and inshallah very interesting. This, some of you may recognize the big tall black guy, is Bilal Abdul Karim. He's one of my very, very close friends. He's still doing what he does best, which is holding power to account through knowledge, through media and beyond. This was at a gathering called Mithaq al-Adala, which was about the concept of justice. That now that the revolution is over, justice must prevail. Nobody will be detained, can be or should be detained without charge or trial. Nobody should be tortured. Everybody should have access to justice within 48 hours. Everybody should know what crime it is that they stand accused of. Because that's what used to happen at the time of the regime, and they used places like Farah Palestine and Farah 215 and Sednaya and Tadmor to imprison and torture people in these places. And so here the intent was, as part of a group of Syrians from all over the city, all over the country rather, to come together to seek a mithaq al-adala, a covenant of justice. This is just a couple of things that again I noted that you do see that every now and then. It's not everywhere, but you do see it. And here I noted it. And this was in a city that's not necessarily seen to be a very Islamic one, but you see the Islamic flag above the Syrian flag. Or here, this is right outside on the right-hand side, Masjid al-Umawi, which is the Umayyad Masjid. That was, in fact, they belonged to the Christians before the Muslims took over at the time of the Sahaba. And this is the Masjid al-Umawi. This is the famous white minaret, which is believed, according to hadith, that the Isa alayhi salam will descend here on the wings of angels. And the place had been renovated just now recently, and they weren't really letting anybody in at the moment, but somebody said, oh, there's this guy from the UK who wants to come in, so they let us in. And finally, this is the grave of Yahya alayhi salam. It's believed that Yahya alayhi salam is buried here, because this was supposed to be here, the court of Herod, the one who had Yahya alayhi salam executed. How true that is, Allahu alim, I don't know. There's so much more to say about Syria, and there's so much more to get into in terms of the politics of what's happening there right now, the direction the country's going into. Is it safe to visit? Is it a place that people could invest in? Is it a place people could go and stay for a short while? Is it a place that is allied to any particular type of politics. Is it left? Is it right? Is it Islamic? Is it not? There's lots of questions that we can discuss about that. But this for me, for you, for all of you rather, was more of a personal journey, to delve into a personal journey about what Syria has meant for me. And it hasn't just stopped there. As soon as I've returned, I'm dealing with several cases, not just one, of people who were disappeared, people who were handed by the Americans to the Assad regime, some of whom I met, and some who we're still trying to find. Are they in secret prisons still in Syria? Are they still run by the regime? You may have heard that yesterday was a battle took place near the region of Tartus between the former government soldiers. So it's not over. And so whilst all that is happening, we are trying our best to locate prisoners, and even prisoners who may be currently in prison there, to make sure that their welfare is taken care of. So inshallah, I'm going to end there, and we'll take questions and answers. Bi'idhnillahi wa sallallahu wa sallim ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. If there's any questions, inshallah, from the brothers or the sisters. Yes.
Based on the recent events and your visits, what's your thoughts on Syria in 5 years?
The brothers asked me, what's my thought on Syria in 5 years? I can answer that really easily. 3 words: I don't know. I don't know. I don't do predictions. وَمَا تَدْرِي النَّفْسُ مَاذَا تَكْسِبُ غَدًا وَمَا تَدْرِي النَّفْسُ بِأَيِّ أَرْضٍ تَمُوتُ. The soul doesn't know what's going to happen tomorrow, doesn't know which land it's going to die in. Just this much. A few months, maybe weeks even before the liberation in Syria, if you ask the people just from Idlib, do you think that you'd be able to visit Aleppo, which is only an hour or so away? They'd have said no. And now they've got Damascus. So what will happen, I don't know. My personal belief is that a showdown will come. And that showdown is with a country that is the biggest usurper that we have seen in modern times. Its name starts with I, and ends in L.
When you think about the current regime and the way they deal with Israel?
What do I think about the current regime and where they're dealing with Israel? Israel, first of all, we have to understand it bombed and took an area towards the south called Quneitra, and it's done that in a region where the majority of people are Druze. The Druze are not Muslims. They are a particular sect who follow a particular belief system. They're not Muslims, and I'm not making takfir of them. They're not actual Muslims. And so the Israelis have taken that region. It's important we understand that Jolan, or the Golan Heights, were taken by Israel in the '67 war, and Syria under Assad regime never attempted to take it back, ever. So that region now, Israel has come even further and taken it, and it's done so because any weaponry that existed there, they destroyed. And that's because that weaponry was not being used, and was not used against Israel for over 50 years. They did not want it to get in the hands of what they believed to be, quote unquote, Islamic resistant fighters. Because the previous regime, whilst they didn't like one another, they'd had a deal that no one's going to attack from here. The current regime, they have no such agreement. And even if the regime says that we have no problems with Israel, ask any one of the soldiers on the ground. They have a big problem with Israel. They have a far greater problem with Israel than any Assadids ever had.
This little man has a question. Yeah, please stand.
What did you think of Syria when you were there?
What did you think of Syria when you were there?
What did I think of Syria when I was there? Oh, there's one slide that I forgot to show you. Right? I forgot, and you're the one. I thought that I'd ended my talk, but I hadn't. You see? Because we're an iftar, right? Now this food here, the middle one, tell me which one. Somebody tell me which one is from a restaurant. If any. Which one of these is from a restaurant? Huh? You're wrong. You're wrong. Sisters, maybe the sisters, you know about cooking?
The left one.
The left one. Nope. The middle one is a restaurant, correct. The other two are not. They're homemade village cooking. And it is, now, at this moment when you're particularly hungry, it is exquisite. And you would love to eat it. It's not very spicy, but,
Unfortunately, that's not on the menu today.
Yeah. So, if you're going to ask me what I think of Syria, sometimes the best way to judge any country is the food. And the food is mashallah. Any other questions, sisters?
Last question, inshallah.
Yeah.
I was looking for, the border areas that the Assadist regime will be kicked out soon, or is it looking?
So there's areas around Ladiqiyya and around Tartus where there is a presence of the Alawi sect, who are the ones who, mostly the Assad regime was from that, so that's where they are mostly based. In the beginning they were subdued, but it seems like some of their people have tried to restart a problem. I've just read that over 200,000 people have volunteered to go and fight them. So, inshallah, I hope there's much more bloodshed, and they get the message that you're finished, it's over. Syria, why is Syria so important? The Americans used to threaten to send me, said if you don't cooperate, we're going to send you to Syria. Syria was the worst of all of the Arab nations. Egypt was bad, Morocco was, but Syria was the worst of all of them. And you can see that just by taking a look at the prisons. So the fact that this has come to an end now, inshallah, my hope and prayer is that people will recognize it wasn't just only Muslims. There was, I've got to tell you one thing. I have to tell you one thing, it's really important. I found this document at Farah, Palestine, and again, it's in the videos that you can watch on my social media. We found this document. It's a register in Palestine branch. And in that, it has lists of names. There's about 100. This is just one. There's maybe many others, but we just got one of the registers. It says name, details, etc. Sabab al-i'tiqal, the reason for the imprisonment. Intima ma jama' irhabiyya, that a connection to a terrorist group. And here's the icing on the cake. What's the name of the terrorist group? Anybody guess? Just guess. Huh? No. The name of the terrorist group, you know it well. You know it well. Nope. You got to think outside the box, guys. Think outside the box. Outside the box. Nope. None of you is thinking outside the box. None of you is thinking outside the box. You're all stuck in the box. Come on, somebody be a jack in the box, man. Come out of it. Shall I tell you? Get ready for shock. Get ready to be shocked. Jamaat al-Tabligh wa Da'wah, meaning Tabligh Jamaat. I promise you. I'll show you the evidence. So what does that tell you? It tells you that you can be as apolitical as you want. You can be as removed from politics as you wish. But there'll always be somebody out there that sees all of you as the same. We don't see ourselves as one unified body. but our enemies see us as one. Jamaat al-Tabligh wa Dawah is Tablighi Jamaat. And the names we saw on there, people from Pakistan, people from India, people from Bangladesh, Iraq, Somalia, Sudan, Jordan, they're all in there. And so the dates, this wasn't at the revolution time, this was from 2005. Jazakumullah khair.
Jazakallah khair. Inshallah, we're just going to show you a quick video. Inshallah, so just be a little slightly patient.
Do you want me?
Stay. You should stay.